They said freedom would arrive at 65, that if you remained loyal, worked hard, and climbed the corporate ladder for 4 decades, you'd eventually be free. Free to finally live, to relax, to travel. Retirement was painted like a reward, a promised land at the end of a long, obedient journey. But what if that reward was never real? What if it was simply a well-designed illusion, meant to keep you climbing, complying, and producing without ever pausing to ask what it's costing you? For most of your life, the narrative has been clear. Study, get good grades, find a job, work for 40 years, then retire. That's the blueprint. That's the expected path. And yet, so few ever stop to ask, who actually wrote this plan? But the reality, waiting at the end of that trail, is far from liberating. A 2020 Stanford Center on Longevity study revealed that more than 2/3 of American retirees felt disoriented just 18 months into retirement, not because they had no money left, but because they had no identity left. They woke up in a world where their purpose, their role, even their sense of self, had vanished. The system never equipped them for freedom. It trained them to function, to operate within a machine, not to live beyond its walls. Retirement wasn't a grand finale. It was a silent exit, a quiet retreat from the stage. The moment your role ends, the spotlight fades, and no one hands you the next script. And that's when the real crisis creeps in. Because what happens when the role you played for decades disappears? Who are you without the title, the meetings, the emails and deadlines that gave you worth? For years, your value was tied to your productivity, not your presence. Now that the system no longer needs you, you're expected to suddenly enjoy life, though no one ever taught you how. Retirement never meant freedom. It was always about scheduling your usefulness. It was never meant to reconnect you with your inner self or with what matters most. It was designed to ease you out, a polished farewell from the machine, wrapped up to look like a gift. That's the genius of the lie. It doesn't feel harsh. It sounds generous. But Alan Watts said it clearly. You are under no obligation to be the person you were told to be. That single sentence shakes the foundation of the retirement myth, because if the script you followed was never yours to begin with, then maybe retirement isn't a conclusion. Maybe it's the realization that the whole book was written by someone else. And that realization stings, because it forces a deeper question. What does it really mean to be free? If you spent your life waiting for permission to begin living, have you really lived at all? We are conditioned to delay everything. Joy, rest, exploration, stillness, as though life begins only after work ends. But life doesn't wait. It doesn't start at 65. It's been unfolding this whole time, and we were too busy preparing to notice. So perhaps the lie isn't just about retirement. Maybe the real lie is that freedom was something you had to wait for. Maybe freedom was never a destination. It was a mindset, a way of being you could have chosen all along. But no one told you that, because a free person is harder to control. A free person doesn't need someone else's script. A free person sees retirement not as a reward, but as a reminder that we exchange our days for a promise that was never truly ours. And now we're left asking, what would life have looked like if we had chosen to live it sooner? If freedom was never the destination, then what was the point? To understand that, we have to zoom out and examine the structure itself, the machine that shaped our lives, before we were even aware of it. Because what we often call normal isn't natural. It's a system not designed to empower, but to standardize. Starting in the 20th century, life itself was industrialized, not just work, but life, broken into repeatable stages. Education, employment, retirement, death. From birth, your path is laid out. Go to school, get good grades, learn to sit still, follow instructions, then choose a career. Clock in, clock out. Do this for 40 years. And if you're lucky, you get a few peaceful years before time runs out. But here's what they never told you. Retirement wasn't invented for your benefit. It was created to control productivity. Back in 1889, Otto von Bismarck introduced the concept of retirement, not as a gift to aging workers, but as a way to remove them, so younger, faster labor could take over. It was economic policy, wrapped in the disguise of compassion, and eventually we accepted it as truth. The system never asked what kind of life you dreamed of, only what kind of worker you could become, and over time, it quietly redefined your value by how well you served its needs. You weren't encouraged to ask why you worked, only how hard. You weren't taught to question the routine, only how to be more efficient inside it. A 2007 report from the American Psychological Association, called The Retiring Mind, said it clearly. Modern humans haven't designed their own lives. They've followed the plans of others. And if you pause to think about it, isn't that what most of us have done? We inherited a model, followed the template, spent our best years, often 47 plus hours a week, working hard, without ever asking, who is this all for? What am I really working toward? This is a deeper deception, that your life belongs to you, when in truth it's been scripted, monetized, and scheduled from the beginning. The education system prepared you for labor. The labor system consumed your time, and the retirement system gently phases you out. Once your usefulness starts to fade, the entire model is built for maximum output, not personal fulfillment. And still, most people don't resist it, not because they agree, but because they don't know anything else. When a machine is all you've ever known, its silence feels like peace. But that's not peace. That's numbness. You're not free. You just stop questioning. The tragedy? Many don't realize they're in the machine until it's too late, until the noise goes quiet, and they sit in the stillness, wondering where the time went. Because when your life revolves around deadlines, schedules, metrics, and milestones, you forget how to be present. You forget your own inner compass. You lose sight of what it means to live a life that's truly your own. You were never born to be a cog. You were born to feel, to connect, to create, to explore. But systems that depend on control don't allow that kind of freedom. So instead, they sell you a version of life that seems safe, structured, and respectable, while quietly draining your spirit. And that's the question. Modern life never wants you to ask, what if the life I've been living wasn't really mine at all? When you finally see the machine for what it is, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. The system didn't just take your time, it molded your identity. It taught you to see yourself, not as a person, but as a role. You were a doctor, a teacher, a manager, and for most of your life, that title defined your existence. Until one day it's gone, and so is your sense of self. This is the part no one warns you about. When the meetings stop, the titles fade, and your calendar turns blank. Outwardly, you should feel free, but deep down, many feel lost. Not because they missed the job, but because they miss who they were within it. They've lost their sense of identity. The one they spent a lifetime building has suddenly vanished. And according to the National Institute on Aging, depression rates surged by over 40% in the first year of retirement. Not because people lack time, money, or comfort, but because they are finally confronted with a question they've never dared to ask. If I'm not working anymore, then who am I? You've been free since the beginning, but they trained you not to see it. Not because they're evil, but because they're afraid too. Afraid of what might happen if people woke up. If people stopped buying what they never needed, stopped working jobs they didn't believe in, stopped measuring their lives in productivity, in profit, in performance, what would happen if you stopped playing along? Stopped waiting for a someday that never comes? What would it look like to live as if your life belonged to you again? Not to the markets, not to the roles, not to the fear. Just you, breathing, fully present, fully here. Maybe that's the only retirement that matters. Not from work, but from the illusion that says you need to become anything more than you are. You don't. You just need to wake up. Because the moment you choose presence, the moment you stop running, the moment you stop waiting, is the moment your life finally begins.